Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by the Guild. I am Tom Downey, and we start things off today with the latest Cowboys rumors. First up, will DeMarcus Lawrence play on the franchise tag? I'm going to give this one 3 stars. It does seem pretty likely. Frankly, I almost gave it 4, but I guess there's a chance something crazy happens. Call it 3.5, call it 3.89, whatever. It's almost 4 stars. Lawrence is expected to play on the franchise tag this year. The deadline is tomorrow on Monday. Now, Tank wants $17 million a year. The Cowboys are not going to offer him that amount of money. The two sides probably aren't going to get a deal done. As a result, Tank, who knows he's another year away from getting an even bigger payday next year, is just going to play on the tag, play happily, and put in great effort and get more sacks next year. And ideally for Tank, that results in a big contract next year from the Cowboys or from somebody else. Let me know how much you guys would pay Tank per year. I think the reality is he wants $17 million. I would be okay giving it to him. I know that there's some risk involved there. I saw that in the comments, especially on YouTube. But for me, Tank is worthwhile because I saw what I needed to see last year out of him. If he does it twice, he's going to be even more than $17 million per year. All right, we'll stick on the defensive line here, and that is Randy Gregory under contract till 2020? Well, I'll give this one 3 stars, not quite set in stone. Even the Cowboys themselves don't know for sure how long Gregory will be under contract for. But if and when he is reinstated, that contract status is still technically unclear. Now, his years in 2016 and 17 should toll or not count, and as a result, everything gets pushed back further. So Gregory won't be a restricted free agent until 2020, and that, of course, assumes he gets reinstated. But as we mentioned on the most recent show on Thursday, that's 3 stars, too. It does seem pretty likely that Gregory will be back on the Cowboys in time for training camp. Applied almost 2 months ago. The time frame is 60 days, but as the NFL showed with Josh Gordon, that's kind of more of a suggestion, not really a mandate. It should come before camp, and the expectation is around Gregory's camp that it will be positive news and that he will be reinstated. So assuming that Gregory does come back for the Cowboys, how many sacks will he have? I've seen quite a few high guesses. I'm going to go with just like 4. I know that that's not many, but he hasn't played football in quite some time, and when he was on the field for the Cowboys last, he really wasn't all that effective. So I will give some expectations there for Gregory, but I'll pump the brake a little bit as well. Number 3, will Maliek Collins start at DT? And at number 3, again, we'll stick with the 3s. 3 stars on this one. That is the expectations for Collins with one big caveat. If he's healthy, and Collins is once again rehabbing another foot injury. Every year Collins has been in the NFL, there's been some type of foot problem he's had to deal with. Now, I think he'll be good to go for the regular season, and if that's the case, Collins and Jihad Ward, those are your starting DTs. Now, once David Irving comes back, well, things can change a little bit. I would assume that you'll see Jihad Ward play mostly 3 technique early, Collins with the 1 technique, but I'm sure they'll shuffle them all. Both players can play both spots. But the big question is not if they'll start in week 1, assuming he's healthy. It's if who starts in week 5, Collins, Ward, Irving, or maybe someone I didn't mention there. All right, folks, we appreciate everyone that's already subscribed to our brand new Cowboys Report channel at chatsports.com/CowboysTV, where we post the full shows plus some other Cowboys coverage. We passed that 1,000 mark. Now we're trying to get to 2,000. That is the next logical milestone there. So if you haven't already, go to chatsports.com/CowboysTV. It'll take you right into the subscribe page. It has all of our Cowboys coverage and only our Cowboys coverage in one spot. We'll keep it rolling now with some more rumors. Next up, will the Cowboys not make the playoffs? I'll give this one 2 stars because people are talking about it. BetOnline published their odds to make the playoffs, and the Cowboys are not only not favored, they only have the 9th best odds in the NFC. And if this was the AFC, I think the Cowboys would be in. They'd probably be a top 3 or 4 odds team, I think. But in the NFC, things are a little bit more challenging. We'll show you here the top teams. Of course, the Eagles and the Vikings and the Rams and Packers and Saints have really good odds. Those are your clear-cut top 5 favorites. Then you've got, at least in Vegas' eyes, 5 teams kind of competing there. The Falcons, the Panthers, the Niners. They're your Dallas Cowboys, pretty far below, but ahead of the Seattle Seahawks. So I want to know from you guys, will the Cowboys make the playoffs? Give me an A for a yes or a B for a no. I mentioned this before. I think they'll go 10-6, a good mark. In the AFC, it's probably a top 4 or 5 seed. But in the NFC, I'm not so sure. So I lean towards no right now because I have some doubts about the Cowboys coaching staff on offense, Garrett and Linehan. I think they'll make a really good push. Just like last year, they'll be right in the mix, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, even though I think they'll be better than what they were last year. Next up, number 5, does Cole Beasley need to be more involved? Well, yeah. 4 stars on this one. Michael Irvin speaking the truth, and almost the obvious truth here as well. Irvin says the Cowboys need to get Beasley more involved. He went from 75 catches to 36 last year. That's not okay. There are massive holes to fill with Dez and Jason Witten gone off the roster. I think Beasley is going to be one of those reliable targets for Dak Prescott. I think those receptions jump way up. And in reality, multiple guys need to step up. Now, Irvin also mentioned Terrence Williams, which I don't think that's going to be the case at this point. But Allen Hurns, Michael Gallup, we'll talk more about later on in the show today. Deontay Thompson, a Cedric Wilson, a Tavon Austin, who's going to play a little bit of everything for you. Noah Brown, and then dark horse Lance Lenoir. Someone's got to step up. So let me know, folks, who you think will be the Cowboys' number 1 wide receiver. I think in reality, in different games, there will be different leading receivers for the Cowboys based on the matchups. But I think overall, the top 2 guys you're going to be counting on the most are Allen Hurns and Cole Beasley. And then by the end of the year, I think Michael Gallup will be among those players. Folks, today's show is brought to you by The Guild. Visit stayguild.com, promo code ChatSports for 15% off your next stay. If you're coming to Dallas for a Cowboys game, you got to stay with The Guild. They're a luxury Airbnb. Again, promo code ChatSports for 15% off your stay. One final rumor for you guys today. How about a trade for Tyler Eifert? I'm only going to give it the 1 star. I don't think it's going to happen. I'd be stunned, but I suppose it could happen. Now, Blogging the Boys said the Cowboys should go make a trade for Eifert, which I like that idea. When healthy, Tyler Eifert is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. The issue is, Tyler Eifert is almost never, ever healthy. Now, he signed a 1-year, very team-friendly deal with only $1 million in base salary. Bengals already paid out a $3 million signing bonus, so the Cowboys would get him for super cheap. But I have a tough time seeing the Bengals moving on from Eifert unless they get a lot back. And for a 1-year player that's not Earl Thomas, I don't think it makes much sense for the Cowboys. I'd like it, but I don't think it's very likely just the 1 star there. All right, folks, I am Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney if you want more Cowboys coverage. And if you have any Cowboys questions, send them my way. And with that in mind, we start with today's mailbag. A long-awaited return here. I know you guys love it. Here it is. We start off with Bubba Cantrell says, are they okay with the tight ends the Cowboys have? I don't really agree with it, but the Cowboys seem to think so. They seem maybe content or satisfied or just beholden to the fact that this is what it's going to be. Jeff Swain, Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz, Rico, and David Wells. Those are your 5 guys. Now, David might be a practice squad guy. 3 guys are going to make the roster, maybe a 4th in Rico. They seem to like that group. I'm not as convinced, but that's where the Cowboys are currently leaning. Kelvin Bay Cornelius says, are there any free agent tight ends or maybe people who could be cut? We'll hold off on the potential cuts, maybe a guy like Max Williams down the road, but look, you can see here by the free agent list, it's just not a good crop of free agents out there. Julius Thomas is not the same guy he once was. Antonio Gates is kind of a charters or bust player at this point. I like Brent Selleck, but what does he do differently than Jeff Swain does at this point in his career? Same with Anthony Fasano. Kobe Fleener has long been a bust, got overpaid by the Saints, and has concussion issues. So I think in reality, this question is, I would love the Cowboys to sign another tight end. I'd give it a 1, but I don't know who you would sign. It's just not a great group. I kind of get where the Cowboys are coming from. You're better off rolling with these young players and saying, okay, let's see how they fare, and then if we have to make a trade, we can do it before training camp ends or before the preseason ends. So it's a 1.5, I guess, for me to not really answer my own question. All right, next up from Bray, asks about a potential Corey Coleman trade, and it's a possibility. I wouldn't mind it. I think Coleman has some upside, but the Cowboys, A, seem content to roll with their current group of wide receivers, and B, I don't know what at the right price is for the Browns. I don't know if it's a 3rd-round pick, a 4th, or a 5th. So if Coleman has a bad preseason, maybe keep an eye out for him, but in reality, I think it's possible, but unlikely. Another one here coming in from Bray asks if the Cowboys could re-sign Alfred Morris. I don't think so. The Cowboys have Rod Smith, Bo Scarborough, Trey Williams, and Darius Jackson, who we'll get to, all you Cowboys fans out there, the Darius Hive out there. We'll get to him in a minute here. So I don't think there's much of a chance. Maybe if there's an injury, the Cowboys would revisit it, but they like Rod Smith. Once again, folks, all these comments coming today, at least the ones from YouTube, are from our new Cowboys Report YouTube channel. Subscribe today, trying to get to 2,000 followers already passed that 1,000 follower mark. Next up is 2,000 subscribers. So go to chatsports.com/CowboysTV. It'll take you right in the subscribe page. We appreciate everyone who's already done so. On to some more Cowboys questions here. Ethan says, if Gregory comes back, how much will we see him in the preseason, and what string do you think he'll play? Well, if he does return, I do think he will, you're going to see a lot of Randy Gregory in the preseason because he needs snaps. Like, yes, you've got Coney Ealy. Yes, you've got Charlton and Armstrong and Crawford and Dayton Jones. But we'll take a look at this depth chart here in terms of snaps. Tank and Crawford, they don't need many. Ealy doesn't need that much. So Taco, Dorrance, Coney Ealy, yes, Charles Tapper, and yes, Gregory, those are going to be your top guys that get snaps. Maybe some Austin Larkin, maybe some James Hearns as well. But if Gregory returns, he is going to play a ton. Now, maybe he starts off with the third stringer and then kind of works his way up in terms of if you're discounting the first string of Crawford and Lawrence, and then let's just say Taco and Armstrong. Maybe it's Ealy and Gregory after that, but you're going to see a lot of Gregory in the preseason if he does return because he needs those reps. Demetrius wants to know, what is the main reason the Cowboys haven't signed a DT or a safety? Is it the coaches or Jerry Jones? I think it's a little bit of both. I think the reality is the Cowboys coaching staff wants to see what they have with these guys, especially at DT. They don't like any of the players out there for some reason. They don't like Hankins, I guess. They want to see what Price and Ash and Jones and Collins and Ward can do. So they want to hold off on that. As for safety, I kind of suspect that maybe they're holding off on a signing just in case they can still swing a trade for Earl Thomas. But they claim there's no fits in their scheme for safety, which I don't get it and I don't agree with it. But I don't have a great answer there for you, Mr. Booker, but I think it's a little bit of everything. All right, Ultra Micro Budget, says who'll be the most improved player in the secondary. Take your pick. There are a whole bunch of guys out there. It's a very young group of players. You can pick Byron Jones, Cheeto, Jordan Lewis. If you want to go most improved, not breakout player, maybe that's Kevon Frazier. Maybe Jeff Heath is that guy. Maybe it's Xavier Woods. There's almost no wrong answer in that secondary. Get your comments in here. My personal one actually goes to our next question from Michael Caldwell, who had a bunch of good comments this week. Says, is this Byron Jones' last chance in Dallas? I don't think so. Two main reasons. One, Byron is the prototype cornerback for a Chris Richard secondary. I have been pounding the table since the middle of last year to move Byron to cornerback. The Cowboys have finally done that, and they picked up his option for the 2019 season. Now, that can be revoked, but I think it shows the Cowboys want to give Byron a chance to be, if not a number one corner, at least a number two guy. So I don't think it's his last chance, but if he struggles, then the Cowboys might not give him another one. We'll get back to some more mailbag questions here, including some on Earl Thomas. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, The Guild. All right, back to Michael. Again, thank you, The Guild, for coming along with today's program. It says, if Earl Thomas is traded, what would the starting secondary look like? Well, I have a couple of comments here on Earl Thomas. A, continues to be his Instagram self, where he continues to like and comment and follow stuff related to the Dallas Cowboys, which gets everyone up in a tizzy, but I don't think there's actually much to read into that. The ball remains in the Seahawks court for Earl Thomas, but if a trade went down, this is kind of how I think the secondary would look like. You got Byron and Cheeto on the outside, Jordan Lewis at nickel with Anthony Brown sprinkled in there. Earl, of course, is your free safety. And then I think Heath and Woods kind of share strong safety. Maybe you see some Kevon Frazier there too, but tell you what, that's a really good group there. A young, talented group with one veteran there in Earl Thomas. So let me know, folks, if you want the Cowboys to trade for Earl Thomas. Give me an A for a yes and a B for a no. I am good with it. Again, it all depends on the cost, but we'll see what happens there with Earl Thomas. I think the most likely outcome, though, remains next year in free agency when, yes, the Cowboys will have the cap space to afford him. All right, Mr. Harrington says, instead of trading for Thomas, how about signing Kenny Vaccaro? I mentioned this last week, and I love the idea of bringing in Kenny Vaccaro. I love him a lot. I think he's a good player. I think he'd be a great fit for the Cowboys secondary. If you want to sign Vaccaro to a one-year deal and then go get Thomas next year in free agency, I'm on board with that as well. I like the idea of Kenny Vaccaro. I think he'd be a good fit for the Cowboys. He can play that free safety, strong safety, even some nickel corner, kind of play in reality the role Xavier Woods played last year for the Cowboys, and frankly, did a pretty damn good job as well. So let me know if you think the Cowboys should sign Vaccaro. Give me a 1 for a yes and a 2 for a no. Back to Michael again. Asked, are there any veterans on the team that you suspect is their last year? As for how it affects the other 10 starters, I think they're fine. They know that people come in and out of the roster each year. Some notable guys in the last year of their contracts: DeMarcus Lawrence, David Irving, and 3 players on offense: Tavon, Cole, and Deontay. I do think this is David Irving's last year in particular. I just don't think he's going to come back. I think he's done. I think the guy was going to maximize his last 12 games, and they'll say, you know what, David, best of luck in the future. Especially if he has a good year, the Cowboys are not going to pay him a lot of money. There are some guys, though, that are in there that could be cut after this year. Now, those are guys last year, their deals. Next up here on this list is some guys that could be cut after the year ends. Tyrone Crawford is one such player. Sean Lee is a potential casualty, but I don't think the Cowboys are going to cut him. They better not cut him. I appreciate him too much. Byron Jones could be cut. If either Allen Hurns or T will struggle, both of those guys could be gone. You could save a lot of money next year, by the way, by cutting Crawford and cutting T-Will and making them post-June 1st cuts. Cowboys have a lot of cap space next year. They can free up even more by cutting some of those guys right there. All right, Michael Caldwell again says, why does Garrett emphasize culture yet have the same problems every offseason? The reality is this is kind of true across the board in the NFL. Players have issues with suspensions and drugs and DUIs and all kinds of stuff. So you can preach the culture and try and get the bubble guys to stay focused. I think for the most part, Garrett has done a good job of that. But when you got 75, 90 guys, depending on what point of the year you're at, those guys are going to get in trouble. So it's not ideal. I'm not excusing it by any means, but it's not just a Cowboys issue. It's more of an NFL issue. So Garrett can keep emphasizing that, but yeah, it does look bad when his players keep getting in trouble. Jordan wants to know, back to an old debate here, TJ Watt or Taco Charlton? Did the Cowboys draft the wrong guy? He also mentioned Van Der Esch versus Watt. Quick note on Van Der Esch versus Watt, they play very different positions. The Cowboys wanted an inside backer. Van Der Esch fits that role much better. As for Watt versus Charlton, I think I'm one of the last holdouts here of this debate. I don't think Watt would have been the best player for the Cowboys. I was on board with taking Taco. He has improved as he went on, but Watt I don't think would have been an ideal fit. I think he is a 3-4 outside linebacker. He did well in Pittsburgh because that's the role he's playing. You put him as a defensive end for the Cowboys scheme, I don't think he's as successful. So, of course, we'll have to wait and see more here, but I get why people wanted TJ Watt. I remain that I think Taco was the right pick. He needs more time to develop, and let's come back in 2 or 3 years and see how Taco's faring, even though I do think Watt is going to be a good backer for the Steelers. But I just don't think he would have reached the same heights in his first year in Dallas as he did in Pittsburgh. Back to Michael again, asked about my favorite pet cat to make the roster. First off, if you guys don't know what a pet cat is, it's kind of that lesser player that you love, that you're hoping is going to make the roster, that you think should make the roster. It's not the first or first round pick or second round pick or even third round pick. It's kind of later round guys, some undrafted free agents that you like and you think could play a bigger role if given the chance. So I got 5 guys here before we get to actual training camp. I like Ced Wilson a lot. I would like him to make the roster over Deontay Thompson if he's as good as I think he can be. You know, you got Dayton Jones on there. I've always liked him. I think he can be a good defensive tackle for the Cowboys as well. Noah Brown, I like at receiver. Then 2 secondary guys to watch out for. Duke Thomas and Cam Kelly both have to do better than what they did in OTAs and minicamp, but all 5 of those guys are kind of the lesser, under-the-radar, lesser-known players that I like quite a bit and could surprise in training camp and in the preseason. All right, speaking of pet cats, how about Darius Jackson? Ivan Sanchez says that Jackson will beat out both Trey and Bo for the last RB spot. Let's argue. Of course, we'll do it nicely and have fun because that's the whole point of this show. I like Darius Jackson. Let me get that out of the way. But we've overhyped him very quickly here. A 6th-round pick in 2016. Hasn't played an NFL snap. Has never done it. He was hurt all last year. Didn't play for the Cowboys or the Browns in 2016. So I like Jackson. I think he'll compete for the number 3 role. But frankly, I think he's behind, of course, Zeke and Rod. I think he's behind Bo and Trey Williams. I almost put Trey, by the way, as a pet cat. You know, I'll tell you the story. When Jackson first got signed, his first touch with the Cowboys in practice, he ran the wrong way. I don't know if it was a Dak issue or a Darius Jackson issue, but it was probably a Jackson issue. So I hope that Jackson can be what I think he can be. I'll give him a 2 for right now. I think he's behind Williams and Scarborough. With that said, yes, he has a chance to make the roster. I just don't think he's going to make it right now. One final question here from Sloan. Says, who do you think will have the bigger impact this year, Sewell or Gallup? First off, they're both going to make good impacts. I like this question a lot. We'll start with Sewell here. All right, I think Jeff Kavanaugh of 105.5 through the Fan is the Michael Gallup hype train leader, but I have already called dibs on the Connor Williams hype train leader. I love him. I had a first/second round grade on him. I had him above Leighton Vander Esch on my board. I love Williams. I thought he was the best tackle in the class. Put him at guard and take him in round 2. Absolute steal. The Cowboys will hand Williams the starting job at left guard this year, and although his impact won't be as obvious as, say, a receiver, Williams will make the bigger impact for the Cowboys. That doesn't mean that Gallup won't make an impact. I think he's going to beat out T-Will by the end of the year as the Cowboys' number 2 outside wide receiver. So Hearns and Beasley and Gallup are going to be some of your top options at wide receiver. Gallup looked really good at OTAs and minicamp. I like a lot of what he brings. He'll make an impact, but to answer the question, I think that Connor Williams will have the bigger impact for the Cowboys this year. So I'm typing in an A. Let me know in the comment section what you guys are doing there with an A or B. There's no wrong answer, but I'm going to lead toward Connor Williams in this case. All right, folks, I'm Tom Downey. If you want your Cowboys questions answered, send them to me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Don't wait for the entire week for the mailbag. Just send them to me on Twitter. I'll be sure to respond. If you missed anything, don't worry. We're going to play it again here, and until then, we'll see you next time.